thatmovieguyUK.
Well, them 2010s, they've been an interesting little decade. Cinematically, I've had a good time. Politically, it's been interesting, no doubt. And on a personal level, it has been a time of development. I graduated from university. I have been with my partner now for 10 years this July. I have started a blog and it has developed into a little nice mini career so far, and it's developing into something a bit more concrete. So I'm very grateful for everything that has happened. I also want to do a shout out to Daisuke for his lovely video about people who should come to my channel. So if you've come here because of Daisuke, thank you very much. Arigato. It has been much appreciated because I woke up this morning and I actually had a lot more subscribers than I had yesterday. So thank you very much, my friend. I truly appreciate it, and I hope I can return the favor at some point, especially when I come to Japan. Then we can talk. Anyway, so I've created a list of 100 best films of the decade in my humble opinion. The purpose of this video is to give you the top 20. The 100 is available on my Letterboxd page, and I will link it below so you can see what the list is actually on. So let's not hesitate, let's start with this top 20. Number 20 is Brady Corbet's Vox Lux, and I saw this at Venice Film Festival twice, purely for the reason that it floored me from the get-go. It has one of the most shocking opening sequences of film that I have ever witnessed, and it really just grabs you from the get-go. Corbet has an interesting European palette for an American filmmaker, and the whole concept of the build-up of a star and how stardom can actually bite you in the ass really just shines throughout this whole film, and Natalie Portman perfectly encapsulates this in the second half of the film. We understand her grievances, we understand her past, and throughout the whole of Vox Lux, you are just entranced by what is actually happening. Number 19 is Little Women, yes, featured in my top 20 of 2019, but I will be honest with you, day by day, Greta Gerwig film is really surprising me, and the effect that it has had on me is massive. I never anticipated for me to be so captivated by a book that has been repeated so many times in cinema, but she just gives it such a fresh viewing and a different kind of perspective, and all the performances in this film, particularly Saoirse Ronan and Florence Pugh, just grabbed me so much, and I think it really deserves to be in my list, and it was a bit of a late addition, but it deserves its place, no doubt. Number 18 is Claire Denis' High Life. I actually went to see this in Paris before a UK release, and I was floored from the get-go. I really do think that Claire Denis' first ever English language film and sci-fi film was purely intoxicating, and she just challenges us to contemplate fatherhood, motherhood, sexual relations, the current state of our world, and even from the opening title card when you see the bodies falling from the sky, and then you know that you're seeing something purely unique and utterly riveting. And it is one of my favourite Claire Denis films, and if you still haven't seen this film, I highly recommend that you do check it out. Number 17 is Mike Mills' Beginners. Yes, probably you're wondering why Beginners is in this list. For me, Mike Mills is one of the most interesting directors in America, and 20th Century Women is also on my top 100. But for me, with Beginners, it was such a melancholic type of film, and a very challenging film about identity and how we perceive our parents. And throughout the whole film, we go through the eyes of Ewan McGregor, Melanie Laurent, and obviously the Academy Award winning Christopher Plummer. And throughout this whole film, it just leaves me reflecting. Number 16 is Jim Jarmusch's Patterson. Honestly, this is the most entrancing film about being an artist that I have seen in a very long time. And Even though Adam Driver is a simple yet humble bus driver, the words that he brings out and puts onto paper is purely majestic. And Jarmusch really encaptures the mindset of Driver's character, and he just splashes it throughout the whole of the film. There is just a subtle melancholic feel to it, and throughout it just leaves you reflecting and contemplating what kind of person you are, but at the same time, do other people deserve to hear what you have to say, especially within an artistic context? And there is just so much going for Patterson. Number 15 is Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, and obviously it has made a lot of lists. Yesterday it was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. We know that this film has a big message, and I have discussed this in my list of top films of 2019, but to repeat myself, it is a very interesting social, political film, but at the same time, Bong Joon-ho takes it to the level where people understand it on a universal level, unlike some of the Korean films where we understand that there's a massive social, cultural issue in Korea. A lot more people seem to be more engaged by this. Number 14 is Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master. And for me, originally, I was more intrigued by The Master purely for my fascination with Scientology. And going into this film, obviously, it's not about Scientology, but it is. But what is so encapturing about this film is Joaquin Phoenix and his character. There is just so much anger, so much tension, so much lack of leadership in him, and how he relies on Philip Seymour Hoffman's character and how they coagulate together and how they perceive the world through influence and, in a way, gentle nudging into ideological mindsets is purely fascinating. And every shot from PTA in this film just feels like a photograph from that era. It is so lavish, and a phenomenal score from Johnny Greenwood, as we all know. Number 13 is Sebastian Schipper's Victoria. I remember going to see this film when I really was in the mood to see a film. I was so drained out with cinema at this time, and I made sure I dragged myself to see it because I really was so intrigued by the concept of it. And if you don't know what the concept of Victoria, it is a one-shot film. Fully one shot. There is no breaks, there is no cuts. This is a direct one shot movie. And that is the pull. And some people say it's a gimmick and everything like that, but I know that Schipper actually rehearsed this quite a lot, and his protagonist had to, I think they did it 3 or 4 times fully until it was right. And what I really enjoy about it is the whole idea of Europe. And Laia Costa is in Germany. She doesn't speak German, but she lives in another European country. And it's how she has so much loneliness. The opening shot of this film, there's a heavy beat, like a techno beat, and then the camera just pans out and you just see her dancing by herself. There is just like, there is so much liberation in her, but at the same time you can feel the essence of her loneliness and the solitude. And then when she comes across a gang of, German lads, and this heist ensues, it's so riveting, and it is such a memorable cinematic experience for me. Number 12 is Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story. I think when it comes to the dramatic level of cinema, this is the pinnacle for me. I truly think that this is the most well-connected film I've had about families in a very long time. And I relate to it so much, even though I'm from a working class background. I feel like there has been a very divisive discussion of this is about upper class people need to stop making. But this is my thing. We shouldn't really regard what class of person the film is about. It's about the human level and the human experience within that film. And Baumbach really brings this A game to it. Number 11 is Martin Scorsese's Silence. And you can argue with me as much as you want, but I do truly think Silence is Martin Scorsese's best film of the 21st century and one of his best films of all time. The concept of tackling faith, your own beliefs within Silence, is astounding. And there is so much time to contemplate and to reflect on who we are as a people and what our belief system is trying to show us, and how faith at times can pull us through very deep and despairing periods of our existence. And throughout Scorsese's film, we are tested. Adam Driver is tested. Andrew Garfield is tested. There is just so much layers of pain, but it betters us. And I remember going to see this on New Year's Day in London, and I had the hangover from hell, but to see a Scorsese on New Year's Day, you can't always say that. And it was a true eye-opening film for me. Number 10 is Began's Long Day's Journey into Night. Long Day's Journey into Night has been a film that has been close to my heart for the last 2 years. Purely, I think this film is so underrated and it really deserves a wider audience. I understand that it came out after the Christmas period in the UK and not many cinemas took it on, but tickets sold out and people have been mesmerised by it. Some people do hate it and I understand that, that's fine. But for me, the whole concept of long shots, of dream sequences in 3D, the whole contemplation of our early years and how we perceive love is challenged within Long Day's Journey into Night, and it's just so masterfully crafted and thought about. And Began's not even 30 years old, and he has made 2 fantastic films in Kaylee Blues and Long Day's Journey into Night. I could not put this in my top 10, and I do hope more people get to see it. Number 9 is Julia Ducournau's Raw. I think it was probably one of the first videos I ever made on this channel. Raw has encaptured me in so many ways, and probably is one of my favourite horror element films. There is just so much going for it. Garance Maillet, who is the lead in the film, just gives a very interesting performance. And it's a very interesting film about growing up, about becoming an adult. There is just so much contemplation of sexuality, of where do you belong in the world, of what your morals stand for. There is just so much to it, but at the same time it's revolting, and it's the type of horror that I love. And to hear that Julia Ducournau was actually making a new film, it just makes the 2020s sound even more spicy. Number 8 is Lynn Ramsey's You Were Never Really Here. I don't know how many times I've seen this film. It is one of my favourite rewatches with my girlfriend. We adore rewatching it. Again, another freaking phenomenal performance from Joaquin Phoenix. You just cannot fault his movie taste after his little experimental period of I'm Still Here and all that stuff. But with You Were Never Really Here, it is just a different type of thriller. It is a different type of action. There is just a lot more to think about PTSD, about what we are doing as a society and how the upper classes are manipulating. There is just so much going for it. Again, another amazing score from Johnny Greenwood. Johnny Greenwood is just amazing. And for me, You Never Really Here, it is on par with Morgan Carlo for me with Lynn Ramsey. I think those are her 2 best films. And we always have to wait a while for Lynn to make a new film, but it's always worth waiting for. Number 7, another Johnny Greenwood score, is Phantom Thread by Paul Thomas Anderson. I love this film. It has such a beautiful look to it. It is one of my favourite Daniel Day-Lewis performances, and I feel like there is such a unique, authentic look to the film. There's this like nice haze throughout the film that looks like the old photographs that you would see during this time period. Vicky Kripps's relationship with Daniel Day-Lewis is just astounding, and just the way that they have such a toxic connection brings them even closer together at times. And once this film changes into the back end of the movie, you're just like, wow, these people are just bizarre. And it holds one of my favorite shots in cinema of the 2010s, and that is the New Year's Eve party when they're dancing in the hall by themselves. I think it's beautiful. And, well, Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my favorite directors, as you may have noticed by now. So, yeah, Phantom Thread. Number 6 is my number 1 of 2019, and that is the Safdie brothers' Uncut Gems. I am very, very sad that The Sandman nor them were recognised for the Academy Awards, but still, it is such a unique film and one of the most tense cinematic feelings I've had in a long time. Most unique, one of my most favourite depictions of New York that I have seen in film, and I cannot get enough of Uncut Gems. Number 5 is Paul Schrader's First Reformed. Again, another amazing performance by an underappreciated actor, that's Ethan Hawke, and probably one of Schrader's best films for a very, very long time. But for a director to write a film that mixes environmental issues with religious issues, with personal issues, and combining them all in, only Schrader has the cojones to make this type of film. And throughout the whole process of watching First Reformed, and I have watched it quite a few times now, you're just looking at a man who is looking at the world and saying, what the hell is the point in existence at times? And I get that a lot with our current political climate. I'm just like, what is the point of existence if everybody can't be happy, or we cannot be unified as a world? You know, we look at these fires that we have in Australia, we're looking at the issues that we've had in Iran recently, we look at Brexit, Boris Johnson. It's just, it's a world that you don't recognise at times. But the people around you keep you going, I guess. And I feel like that's the whole consensus of Amanda Seyfried's character. And I just purely adore First Reformed. Number 4 is Todd Haynes' Carol. And I remember going to see this at Christmas in Manchester when it came out. And there was about 4 people in the screen. And I was so invigorated by Carol. It is such a tragic piece from Haynes, and I do feel like it is his best. Between Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett, they bring so many natural feelings throughout the film. And obviously it's a film about identity and your own actual sexual liberation. But during the period of time that we're in, they can't be that. And it is so sad to see. And throughout this whole film, Haynes just gives you the actual perspective of this time period, and I just can't get enough of Carol. Number 3 is Jonathan Glazer's Under the Skin. In 2013, when I went to see this film, I went all the way to Liverpool on opening day to see it, and it's about an hour and 45 drive from my place. I honestly had to go and see it straight away. I love Sexy Beast. It is one of my favourite Jonathan Glazer films, and I enjoy Birth. And once I heard about Under the Skin, I read the book. I was so intrigued from the Venice reviews for it. And honestly, it was probably one of my first like indie cinema experiences. And I still remember going to see it. I remember listening to Mika Levi's score. I just remember the opening shots of just her adjusting her voice with the na 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 na. It's just, there is just such a journey of being introduced to an alien world to you, and just how she tackles each situation. And I feel like it culminates so well when she goes to the gentleman's house, and she's observing her body and just looking at this identity that this alien doesn't necessarily know. Glazer has so many ideas, and I understand that some people don't perceive Under the Skin as a masterpiece, but for me, in my humble opinion, it is truly one of the shining films of the 21st century, and one of the most shining films of all cinema. If you ask me, I cannot get enough of this film, and I do wish more people would discuss it. Number 2 is Leos Carax's Holy Motors. I honestly feel like this is one of the best amalgamations of genre in film in general, and it is a wonderful film about a city that I do love, and that's Paris. I have been to Paris numerous times. I love the city, and Carax just brings this different element and a different character to Paris. But obviously, this film would be nothing without Denis Lemon, who gives one of the all-time best performances. And as some of you may know, at Cannes Film Festival, when this film played, the accordion scene in particular, during the midpoint, people stood up and clapped. And I will never really understand why Carax put this in the scene, but it is such a life-affirming moment, and the whole idea of Holy Motors is just the life experience and the ups and downs of what goes on, but it's a beautiful homage to cinema. So, my number 1 film, have you guessed it? Because I don't think a lot of people will have guessed this, but it is actually Hamini Korines' Spring Breakers. When I considered this list, I considered it in a way where I feel like it demonstrates my taste. It demonstrates the period of time that we live in and actual impact on my thought process. As some of you may know, Hamini Korines is one of my favorite directors of all time, and he challenges me in a way that not many directors do. But with Spring Breakers, I honestly feel like it is the most socio-political film that has come out in this era. And I'm saying this purely for the reason of it's a great demonstration on youth culture. And it shows how some members of society just want to make a quick buck without really working for it. And it's a demonstration of how greed can get you. And for that reason, I feel like it's the most insightful film of this period of time. And I've seen Tree of Life, and I think the Tree of Life has a lot to it, but when I think of Corin, I always think of this mastery that he brings. With Spring Breakers, though, you can say that Corin, did he really think this? Is a lot of people just theorizing this is what he's trying to say? But I truly think that he had a lot to say about this status. And I feel like with The Beachman, for example, that was just an all-out comedy. And that's acceptable. I think that's justified, but there's just so much more to Spring Breakers, and I feel like the entry point to this is obviously Alien, played by James Franco, and how he shows that the girls can live a fast life, and how they can achieve it is through violence, drugs, and that's it. It just gives you that kind of call. And I think the scene for me that encapsulates Spring Breakers is when James Franco is playing the piano with the Britney Spears song, "Every time I see you in my dreams, I see your..." Anyway, and it's just that slow motion idea of you realize that they've hit this pinnacle, and in the short time of their lives up to this point, this is the top of the mountain, and they've not really had to do much character building to get to it. they've just seen an easy track to life. And the whole neon cinematography of this film, the whole concept of the story is everything. And I think Corin deserved this in this list, obviously. And Spring Breakers is a film that will remain with me for the rest of my days, and it will be a film that I refer to a lot of people. I recommend it to a lot of classes I teach within obviously certain age range, and I challenge them to see it and to see what they perceive from it. And sometimes I get the answer I'm looking for, sometimes I get new angles, but it's definitely something that is truly thought-provoking. That is my list, and please let me know what your end of decade lists look like, even through Letterboxd or in the comments below. I've enjoyed the discourse that we've had with the top 20 of 2019, but I would love to hear from you guys, and especially from the new subscribers. Thank you very much for coming here. Again, thank you Daisuke, I really appreciate all your help, and to Hus from A Touch of Film. You guys really have helped me a lot, and also Graham from Man v Film. You guys really do help a lot for me, and I will return the favour one day, I assure you. And obviously with content, I have Bait on Blu-ray, which is a British film that came out last year. I haven't had the chance to review it yet, but I probably will imagine that is my next review. The decision is now that I will not be reviewing any major studio films unless I feel like I need to discuss it. It's just not for me. I think there's enough people on YouTube that are discussing them, and you don't really need another person doing the discourse, because it is what it is. Anytime I go see these big films, you'll just see a couple of paragraphs on my Letterboxd, or if I'm reviewing them for Movie Marker, I will be sharing them on here as well for you. Like I said, my top 100 of the decade is below, and all my details to follow me on any form of social media is below. So if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, feel free. And I'm always here to talk about film because I love talking about film, and this is why I'm here. And I am very energetic about this 2020, and yeah, let's just get this done. And obviously, as we see on this channel, diolch danka, obrigado, merci beaucoup, arigato, dankeschön, bitte, all the shuns, and obviously, never change. And let's hope 2020 is a good decade. Bye-bye.